This is about the life of Sarah, and she lived 127 years. Probably didn't look a day over 30. And Sarah Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham came and to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Then Abraham arose from mourning before his dead and spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I'm a stranger and a foreign resident among you. Give me a burial site among you that I may bury my dead out of my sight. The sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying to him, Hear us, my lord. You are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our graves. None of us will refuse you his grave for burying your dead. Abraham stood up and bowed to the people of the land, the sons of Heth. And when he spoke to them, saying, If you are willing to let me bury my dead out of my sight, listen to me and plead with Ephron, the son of Zohar, for me, that he may give me the cave at Machpelah, which he owns, which is at the end of his field, for the full price. Let him give it to me in your presence for a burial site. Now Ephron was sitting among two sons of Heth. Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham. So the sons of Heth heard, that is, all who entered the city, the gate of his city, saying, No, my lord, listen to me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. In the presence of the sons of my people, I give it to you, bury your dead. Abraham bowed before the people of the land, and he spoke to Ephron so that the people of the land heard, saying, If you will only please listen to me, I will give the price of the field, accept it from me that I might bury my dead there. Then Ephron answered Abraham, saying to him, My lord, listen to me. A plot of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between me and you? Bury your dead. Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out for Ephron the silver which he had named in the presence of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, currency acceptable to a merchant. So Ephron's field, which was in Machpelah, which faced Mamre, the field of the cave which was in it, and all the trees which are in the field that were within all the confines of its border, were deeded over to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the sons of Heth before all who entered the gate of the city. After this, Abraham buried his wife Sarah in the cave of the field of Machpelah, facing Mamre, that's Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the field were deeded over. So Abraham doesn't mind sordid gain. He doesn't mind making money off of deception, because he deceived Pharaoh, he deceived that other king, and he got wealthy from it. But Abraham doesn't take anything like this for free. Abraham is a guy who likes to be in control. And he's not going to go burying his wife in a cave that can be repossessed. Right? That's his thing. And that's basically what's happening here, is that he is a sojourner in this land, and he wants to make sure that whatever he gets, that wherever Sarah is buried, is a permanently his and can never be taken away. In verse 12, by the way, Abraham bowing before the people of the land, this is worship. I know a lot of people make a big deal out of the word, shakah in Hebrew, and then when you switch into Greek here, this is the word proskuneo, which in the New Testament they say, they proskuneoed Yeshua, so he must be Yahweh. But they're taking it too far. It's very much something that can mean worshiping, like worshiping God, but it also means giving honor or giving, rendering honors and stuff like that. That's my first note on this one. And I did this stuff early in the week, so hopefully all the stuff comes back to me as we move along, but I wanted to get the things up. Everett, what you got?
Well, yeah, it's the Japanese, maybe the Asians in general, use bowing just as a handshake is really the equivalent in our culture. So, yeah, it's no big deal.
Right. Right. And he bowed before the people, and the Ephron calls Abraham Adonai, right? So it doesn't mean he's calling Abraham the Adonai, right? Right? He's calling, just says, "Hey, my Lord," right? They're showing him a lot of respect. Look, he just lost his wife. they want to be kind to him, but Abraham is very much not going to take anything for free because they could hold it over his head. Tiffany?
She called his wife called Abraham master, some like Lord master to my home, to me, or whatever.
It's just a matter of context, So we go to 24, and Abraham was old, advanced in age, and Yahweh had blessed Abraham in every way. Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he owned, place your hand under my thigh, and I will make you swear by Yahweh, the Elohim of heaven and the Elohim of earth, that you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I live, but you will go to my country, to my relatives, to take a wife for my son Isaac. Under the thigh is such a strange thing, but we take it to have something to do with the circumcision, right? That's the part of the body that you would reference, and swearing by the covenant, I reckon. Anybody else?
When Jacob fought the angel, when Jacob fought the messenger, wasn't that like under the thigh?
It was
Is that a reference to that?
socket. Yeah, but that comes later.
Okay, I think a connection between the two.
Yeah, that's probably a connection too. Yeah. But Abraham, again, he's a control freak. Okay. The only place in his life where he has demonstrated blind faith and blind trust is with Yahweh, right? Everywhere else, he's one step ahead. Oh, they're going to steal my wife. They're going to kill me. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Now he's old and he has to delegate something. And he is not comfortable doing this, right? Right? You could tell he's like, whoa. He's taking his servant. This is probably somebody that went to war with him when he rescued his nephew. This is probably somebody who doesn't need to have to swear to do anything, but he knows that this covenant's going to work. He knows the covenant, and he's making this guy swear to him that it's going to happen because he couldn't do it himself. The bloodline was very super important to Abraham to trust that it would happen. And he says, go to my country and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Isaac. But the servant said to him, suppose the woman is not willing to follow me to this land. Should I take your son back to the land where you came from? No, do not take my son back there. Yep. Yahweh, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from my land of my birth, who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to your descendants, I will give this land. He will send his angel before you and will take a wife for my son there. So this is early on. I want to go look at Romans 13. And maybe somebody read this and understands why I linked it together. But everyone is to be in subjection to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God of those which exist or established by God. The servant is under Abraham's authority. Abraham is under God's authority. There is order here. Abraham is dying, and he says the covenant's going to be with my son, and it's going to be here. I'm going to respect that authority. Abraham respected the authority of the people when he bought that field. He's totally into submitting to the authorities. He also did this with Melchizedek when he gave the 10th of the increase to Melchizedek. He was submitting to authorities, which is very proper. For rulers are not a cause for fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of authority? What good is it? You will have praise from the same. When he negotiated the deal with the field, it was in the broad open so that people could hear, so there were elders present, and that it was done in an orderly fashion. Yes, ma'am.
I see him as having grown in trusting Yahweh. He sees the vision of being the father of many nations, and in getting that burial place. He's moving ahead with the plan, and those gonads are part of the deal.
They are. Okay.
Without that, there's no further people.
It does say to
Yes.
Abraham's seed. Yes, absolutely does say that. It's a minister of God for you to good for good. For if what you do is evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword for nothing, for it is a minister of God, an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil. Therefore, it is necessary to be in subjection, not only because of wrath, but also for conscience sake. Abraham's servant knows that Abraham is vulnerable and he's dying, and he has to go make the journey and do what he's told for conscience sake. This is the behavior that we're going to see out of Abraham's servant when he goes in. He says, no. My Lord told me to do this, this, and this. And he prays to Yahweh. And it's also another reason to talk about Romans 13, because with Abraham, it is the beginning of authorities in the Bible. It's the beginning of order. It's the beginning of nations. It's the beginning of treaties. It's the beginning of that. So Yahweh has established this throughout how many thousands of years when Paul wrote this? What, 3,000-4,000 years later that Paul is writing this? These rulers exist because Yahweh establishes rulers. He establishes kingdoms. And that's hard for us to get our head around because so many of them are just downright bad. They're horrible, right? What the Russians are doing to the Ukrainians, what the Iranians are doing to the Israelis, right? How many countries has our country destroyed just on accident, right? Right? You know, and so this order is established, and these people have power because Yahweh wants them to have power. Therefore, it's necessary to be in subjection, not only because of wrath, but also for conscience sake. For because of this, you pay taxes. For rulers are servants of God, devoting themselves to this very thing. Render to all what is due them. Tax to whom tax is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, and honor to whom honor. All of these things are present in the Torah portions that we've read up until now, with Abraham paying the tithe to Melchizedek and not taking anything from the king of Sodom, right? He's not going to be beholden to anybody because of these things. He's establishing what we see as something complex later. You know what I mean? Today it's complex because everything is so messed up. And in the days of Paul, it is very messed up because Paul was Pharisee, anointed by Yeshua, citizen of Rome, and he's navigating this messed up world, very similar to what we're doing, but Paul's way up here and we're way down here, right? Right? And so we have to look at these things and understand that the authorities are there and for good. Now, it may not be immediate good, right? Right? When Joseph gets sold into slavery, in his immediate good was not good, right? Right? He was locked up. At first, they were going to kill him. Then he was locked up, sold off into slavery, locked up in a prison. But Joseph was humble and ended up becoming the Prince of Egypt, which was a whole situation that Yahweh made happen in order to preserve the holy bloodline and raise up a nation in Goshen. I think he was probably 35. I think he was maybe 20 years, span of about 20 years, I would say, just off the top of my head. Right? The guys, people with the keyboards, maybe you're like, right? Right, trying to get the right numbers. But I figure that's about it because he was a young, strapping man when that prince in Egypt's wife wanted him, right? So he was, probably 20 something then, figure. Owed nothing to anyone except to love one another, for he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. Don't owe anybody anything. Abraham was a great example of this. He made all that wealth and he didn't have any commitments. When he's fixing to leave the earth, he wasn't doing things that we're going to see, later with David and, we're going to see in the Haftarah. Haftarah ties into this. Like, I picked Romans 13 first and then we get to Haftarah and I'm like, wow. Right. Right. They were really matches. Right. But to not owe anybody anything. This society today, that's pretty hard to do. But Abraham did accomplish that. For this, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet. And if there is any other commandment, it is summed up in this, saying, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfillment of the Torah. Do this, knowing the time, that it is already the hour for you to awaken from sleep. For now salvation is nearer to us than when we believed. The night is almost gone, and the day is near. Therefore let us lay aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us behave properly as in the day, not carousing and in drunkenness, nor in sexual promiscuity or sensuality or strife or jealousy. So did Abraham operate in the daylight when he made those deals? Did he make those deeds and make that in 400 shekels and he paid it? You know, what do we see today? Right? If somebody's rich, what do? They get a deal to where they go and take a trip somewhere, they don't have to pay for it. Right? Wealthy people are really good at staying wealthy, right? Right? They're really good at that. And this is where he's paying his fair share. And this week, I mean, with the insurance companies, I keep getting these bills for my surgery. I just intrinsically have to make sure that they've all been paid, because these people have done. The guy drilled into me and re-sewed my rotator cuff together. He needs to get paid for that, right? Right. And so we have to live our lives like this, and that displays our love and our respect and our honor for our fellow man. But put on the Lord Yeshua and make no provision in the flesh in regard to lusts. So, okay. Any other comments on that? Because we're going to hearken back to this throughout the day.
Yeah, I was thinking, this is Ross. I grew up in the Reformed Church, and the Reformers had a different take on Romans 13, such as disobedience to tyrants, disobedience to God. That's how they justified the American Revolution. King George was acting like a tyrant, not obeying God, so they were just, in their eyes, they were justified in rebelling against the crown.
Well, I mean, there does come a point where revolution is a thing, right? When the Greeks invaded Judea, it was okay and expected for the Maccabeans to revolt. So I suppose we have to take that on a case by case, basis. The problem today is there's so many Sophie's choices out there, right? As we saw in the last election, right? Right? What these are our two choices, right? And you know what I mean? And we see this all throughout our society today. And why is that there? Because of Satan. Satan just makes everything has to be tainted somehow, but and they did. And if you look at the American Revolution and you read the whole Declaration of Independence, they suffered wrong for a really long time before they said they didn't actually revolt and go into arms. They just wrote the guy a letter. They said, look at all these things that you've been doing to us, making us kill our own family members on the high seas. Just doing all these incredible wrongs, and said, okay, we're done. We're independent. You do what you do, right? Because we've had it with you. So they actually operated above board in that as well, because they had their own assemblies and they had to sign the declaration and send the letter. Anyway, civics lesson. So Abraham was old, advanced in age. Yahweh had blessed Abraham in every way. Abraham said to his servant, I already read all that. Don't go back. No going back. This is also a very big thing, right? It's as if the woman's not willing to follow you, then you're free from my oath. Only do not take my son back there. What happened when Lot's wife looked back? She turned into a pillar of salt, right? For us, people who are called out of Babylon, we're not to look back. When the Israelites came out of Egypt and they wanted to go back for cucumbers, we had a lot of cucumbers today at lunch, right? I don't think any of them tasted good enough to go back into slavery. Okay. Okay. I can live free and not have another cucumber. I'll be fine, right? Now those spanakopita, all right. But yeah, we can't go back. And that's Abraham came, the Hebrew, he crossed over. He made a decision to leave the land of his parents. And we've all done the same in more of a spiritual sense, because there's nowhere, where are we going to go on earth, right? It was it's 2024, around about 2015, all the Hebrew people, all the Messianics and everybody were like, oh, we're going to go to Costa Rica. We're going to go here. We're going to go make our own little communities. No, you're not. Right? Go ahead. Right? Go ahead and make your own little community. Right? Right? What about the poor people who made their own community in Western North Carolina? Right? This is a global problem we have today. Right? We study the Torah, but we have to apply it to the entire earth. Right? When Yeshua comes back, every eye will see, every tongue confess. This is a global event that's coming back. Now, I say this as a guy who does live in the country. We did choose to live in the country and raise our kids in the country because we don't want to be part of the, city drama and listening to sirens and stuff. But we're not going to be able to kind of flee from the wrath to come. That's going to be completely up to Yahweh, whether we go through tribulation and to which degree. So the servant placed his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. Then the servant took 10 camels from the camels of his master and set out with a variety of good things of his master's in his hand. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. And he made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of the water at evening time, the time when women go out to draw water. Okay, something just popped into my head. Hope it stays there. Oh, the first thing is the hospitality we talked about last week, right? This servant is going on a journey to go win a bride for Isaac. He's taking a dowry with him. He's going with that hospitality in mind. He's not going to negotiate. He's going to go and be generous and kind and give a display of the gifts and the life that this future bride is going to experience, right? He doesn't just go out there and say, my master's wealthy, trust me. He brings the goods. Okay. He brings the goods, and he brings the goods with the purpose of leaving them with that family. And the other thing is, where else do we see a woman coming to a well to draw water? And with Yeshua and the sinful lady from Samaria. And it's interesting that custom was still in place how many thousands of years later, right? So he said, he prays, Yahweh, Elohim of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show loving kindness to my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the spring, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. May it be that the girl to whom I say, please let down your jar that I may drink, and who answers, drink, and I will water your camels also. May she be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. And by this, I will know you, that you have shown loving kindness to my master. So how many times have we prayed something like this? How many times have each one of us said, you know what? I think I'm on the right path. I think I'm doing the right thing. Give me a sign. And it's not a sign like, stars aligning or right. This is just let this feel right. Let this work out right. Right. That's the phone call I had with Don earlier today. He was looking for a sign to say, hey, am I going the right way setting this up in Kansas City? And when this church offered such an incredibly reasonable offer, and he called him, he says, okay, we know we're on the right track now. Right. So this is a pretty good example of humanity of our hearts. So before he had finished speaking, behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor, came out with her jar on her shoulder. The girl was very beautiful, a virgin, and no man had relations with her. And she went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, now look what happened. He's got his prayer answered, but he still had to go. He still had to get his feet going, right? A lot of the mainstream Christians are, think you just pray is going to come to you. You still have to have skin in the game, right? So please let me drink a little water from your jar. She says, well, I'll drink, my lord. And she quickly lowered her jar to her hand and gave him a drink. When he'd finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw also for your camels until they have finished drinking. So Abraham's hospitality is a family trait. That's how come that and the miracle, but that's a likelihood as to why this is happening, because they have this mindset of helping other people. The servant attitude. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough, ran back to the well she drew for all his camels. That's a lot of work, right? What's a camel drink? 50 gallons, right? The camels would put a packet away. And so meanwhile, the man was gazing at her in silence to know whether Yahweh had made his journey successful or not. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took a gold ring weighing half a shekel and 2 bracelets for her weighing 10 shekels of gold. Isn't a shekel pretty big? I mean, I think a shekel is a sizable amount, right? And he said, whose daughter are you? Please tell me, is there room for us to lodge in your father's house? And she said to him, I'm the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. And she said to him, we have plenty of both straw and feed and room to lodge. So not only is she a servant attitude and hospitable, she has the authority to invite the guy over to partake of the family's wealth. What is that showing us here? A little bit of women's rights, women's respect, right? She doesn't say, let me go ask my dad if I can bring you over or if I can help you. She gives hospitality to strangers, just like the Bible says, in such people have entertained angels. In this case, the angel is a messenger, a human messenger, right? And a human messenger is being entertained and prophecy is being fulfilled. And he said, blessed be Yahweh, the Elohim of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving kindness and his truth for my master. As for me, Yahweh has guided me in the way to the house of my master's brothers. Pretty big sign, right? The girl ran and told her mother's household about these things. Now, Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban, who doesn't stay a good guy for long, right? And Laban ran outside to the man at the spring. When he saw the ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrists, and when he heard the words of Rebekah, his sister, saying, this is what the man said to me, he went to the man, and behold, he was standing by the camels at the spring. And he said, come in, blessed of Yahweh. Why do you stand outside? Since I prepared the house and a place for the camels. So the man entered the house. Laban unloaded the camels and gave straw and feed to the camels and water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. But when food was set before him to eat, he said, I will not eat until I have told my business. He says, speak on. How? What is he doing? He is respecting the authority of these people and their customs and their traditions. Romans 13 playing out again in front of us. When food was set before him to eat, he said, I won't eat. So he speak on. He says, I'm Abraham's servant. Yahweh has greatly blessed my master so that he has become rich. And he has given him flocks and herds and silver and gold and servants and maids, camels and donkeys. Now Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master in her old age, and he has given him all that he has. My master made me swear, saying, you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whose house I live, but you shall go to my father's house and to my relatives and take a wife for my son. I said to my master, suppose the woman does not follow me. And he said to me, Yahweh, before whom I have walked, will send his angel with you to make your journey successful, and you will take a wife for my son, for my relatives, and from my father's house. Then you will be free from my oath when you come to my relatives, and if they do not give her to you, they will be free from my oath. So I came today to the spring and said, Yahweh, Elohim of my master Abraham, if you now will make my journey on which I go successful, fast forward, right? So she did it. and I asked her whose daughter, and I bowed low and worshiped Yahweh. So this is the same word, but he worshiping Yahweh this time. Blessed Yahweh, God of my master Abraham, who had guided me in the right way to take the daughter of my master's kinsman for his son. So now if you are going to deal kindly and truly with my master, tell me, and if not, let me know, that I may turn to the right hand or the left. Then Laban and Bethuel replied, the matter comes from Yahweh. We cannot speak to you bad or good. Here is Rebekah before you. Take her and go and let her be the wife of your master's son, as Yahweh had spoken. Wow. Could you imagine sending your daughter off like that? No. No. Yeah, no. Got the mic?
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
What? I was just gonna say, I like how upfront and transparent the servant was. Like before they even ate anything, he told them all his business and didn't hide anything from them, so that, you know, they couldn't later say that he kept anything back. He was just upfront about his business.
Yep. So do you guys think Rebecca might have looked like Sarah? They're related. And you think that maybe that was a sign too. She's very beautiful, just like the mom was, or her auntie or whatever was beautiful. It's entirely possible. And she was no stranger to work. That's also important when you have in this lifestyle and in ours today, you don't want to have a wife who's just going to be sitting around, right, painting her nails all the time. You want to have a wife who's going to get up and take care of business, raise the kids and whip stuff into shape. And she had a kind heart. Yes, sir. Absolutely. So, and he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night. And you're right. They conducted business before he partook of any of their stuff. And his brother and mother said, let the girl stay with us a few days, say 10. Afterwards, she may go. He said to them, do not delay me, since Yahweh has prospered my way. Send me away that I may go to my master. So we will call the girl and consult her wishes. Again, she has a say in this. They called Rebekah and said to her, will you go with this man? And she said, I'll go. Now, maybe, just maybe, Laban was putting on an act. And she's like, I'm out, right? Right? Because maybe she wasn't treated as well as possible, right? What's the home life like? If you're like, hey, look, stranger, camels, gold, I'm out of here, right? Right? Because today, if somebody, I get emails all the time, you've won this thing. No, I haven't. Swipe, right? You don't believe a thing. So they sent away their sister Rebekah with her nurse with Abraham's servant and his men. They blessed Rebekah and said to her, may you, our sister, become thousands of 10,000s, and may your descendants possess the gate of those who hate them. It's going to happen. All right? And Rebekah arose with her maids, and they mounted the camels and followed the man. So the servant took Rebekah and departed. Now Isaac had come from going on to Beer Lahai Roi, for he was living in the Negev. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field toward evening, and he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, camels were coming. Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and she saw Isaac, and she dismounted from the camel. She said to the servant, who is that man walking in the field to meet us? And the servant said, he's my master. Then she took the veil and covered herself. The servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Then Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent. He took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Thus Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Oh, what a love story. This long courtship, the dating, the candlelight dinners. No, that's not how that happened. It was an immediate betrothal. Kind of hard to get our heads around that, but yep. Everett, go ahead.
Yeah, one other thing is missing is the big wedding.
Oh yeah.
And Melchizedek to preside over it.
That's true.
You know, that, yeah, weddings are a relatively new thing, you know.
Mhm.
And as I understand it, it's because people in the Middle Ages wanted the blessing of the Pope, the connection to God on their marriage.
Yeah. Corky chimed in that a shekel is 0.4 ounces. So a 10 shekel piece of jewelry is a 4-ounce piece of jewelry. That's not small, right? Yeah. Genesis 25.
So much for the people who said you shouldn't wear a wedding ring or wear jewelry.
Huh.
Because a lot of people want to say you shouldn't wear a wedding ring.
That's true. And some of the things that we learn along the way have pagan roots are coincidences. You know, some of the things are like the wedding ring, and it's very utilitarian, right? By the way, I dropped into a jewelry store and got mine shined for free this week. Can you believe that? Right? Right? It's nice and shiny, right?
It could be because of the fourth finger or whatever. It could be pagan based on whatever roots the fourth finger was. They may not put on the fourth finger on the left hand, but it could have been any finger. Who knows? But they wore jewelry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they wore jewelry. Yeah. But the wedding ring is utilitarian in our society today. It's very handy because you're like, I'm not eligible, right? I'm taken. It's especially with women and men working right next to each other in the workplace and out and traveling or whatever. It's pretty handy. Yeah. Everett?
Yeah, the pagans ate and laughed and had parties too at various times. So, you know, you've got to kind of look behind what's really the cause of it. Is it something that they're doing that would be truly offensive to the creator? Or is it just a tradition that helps one remember that one is married sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's when you get into theological arguments and people come at me like, well, the Mormons believe that, or the Jehovah's Witnesses believe that. I'm like, you know what? I heard the Mormons use toothpaste.
I heard the Mormons actually read the Bible too.
Right. Right.
They have a Bible, a holy Bible, just
Right.
like
So
Jehovah's Witnesses. They read the same Bible.
right. So if you better stop being like those Mormons and stop reading your Bible and brushing your teeth. Right. Right. It's the guilt by association logical fallacy that just, sometimes there's intersections. Most of the time, though, when we go through it, I don't know where that yellow book went. Somebody took it home to read it, I think. But some of the stuff is just straight up pagan, our days of the week, our calendar, it just is what it is. And it's inescapable. And some of the things are escapable, like Christmas and Easter and Sunday, right? I mean, it's even Halloween is satanic.
How about wedding license? Is that pagan?
A wedding license?
Yeah, my understanding in early America, they didn't have to have licenses. They just wrote your names in the Bible and, after you got wedded at the church.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the wedding license is a state thing that it's neither good nor bad. It's not, I don't think it's pagan. But we did have a guy in our circles for a brief time who claimed that a woman was his wife, but they never really got married. They never got that certificate. So she wasn't. He's like, oh, no, they had their marriage blessed at Sakota or something. And so it's, getting that marriage license on file with the state is 10 or $15.
It's more of a legal thing.
Yeah. It's a legal thing. But you're right. I mean, for the longest time, it wasn't a thing at all. So Abraham took another wife whose name was Keturah. Can you believe that? He's 137 years old. Well, she bore to him Zimran Jokshan, so she's probably less than 50, right? Yeah. Midian, Ishbak, and the sons of Midian, and Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac. But the sons of his concubines, Abraham gave gifts while he was still living and sent them away, and from his son Isaac eastward to the land of the east. But these are all these nations that get sprung up out of Abraham, which establishes that order and those authorities, right? Son of this, son of that, working your way up the tree to derive your authority from Abraham and from these covenants. Abraham breathed his last and died at a ripe old age, an old man satisfied with life, and he was gathered to his people. Okay. That gathered to his people is a Hebrew idiom for dying. Abraham was not gathered to his people. His people were still alive. He's the beginning of the line, right? It doesn't, so when it says gathered to his people here, it just means he died, right? Later, once Isaac dies, he's gathered to Abraham, meaning that he goes and dies, not like they're together or something, but that means they're both dead. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave at Machpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite, facing Mamre, the field which Abraham had purchased from the sons of Heth. There Abraham was buried with Sarah, his wife. Now these guys can walk, because of that 400 shekels, they can walk boldly up there and bury Abraham, and they've got a piece of land that they absolutely own. Now these are the records of the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's maid, bore to Abraham. These are the names, by their names, the order of birth: Nebaioth, firstborn; Kedar, Abdeel, Mibsham, Mishma, Duma, Masa, Hadad, Tema, and on and on. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names by their villages and their camps, according to their tribes. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people. And I think that's where it's supposed to stop, right? 25:18. They settled from Havilah to Shur, which is east of Egypt, and goes on to Assyria and settled with all his relatives. So that was pretty easy, but it gets a lot better with this 1 Kings 1 through 31. Anybody else have anything on Genesis before we move on? Alex? Nothing? All right. Now we get to some treachery. Oh, yeah. It's bad. King David was old, advanced in age, and they covered him with clothes, but he could not keep warm. So his servants said to him, "Let them seek a young virgin for my lord the king, and let her attend to the king and become his nurse. Let her lie in your bosom, so that my lord the king may keep warm." So they searched for a beautiful girl throughout all the territory of Israel and found Abishag the Shunammite and brought her to the king. The girl was very beautiful, and she became the king's nurse and served him, but the king did not cohabit with her. Remember when Trump and Biden met recently, and there was a fire behind him, the likes of which you could see from space? It's because old guys get cold, right? I'm just saying. My dad at the nursing home, they actually, if you can believe this, at the veterans nursing home, they have a cabinet in the dining hall of warmed blankets. They have a big glass door oven that's set to a low temperature to keep blankets warm for these guys. So when they go to chow, they can have a warm blanket put on them, right? It's really compassionate, right? But the old guys get cold. That's just the way it is. The blood stops a pumping. Oh, and Marston's sitting next to our heater right now. Are you even 30? You're 70? You're looking pretty good for 70, bro. Yeah. He's got the Abraham genes. Yeah. So now Adonijah, the son of Haggith, exalted himself, saying, "I will be king." So he prepared for himself chariots and horsemen with 50 men to run before him. His father had never crossed him at any time, saying, "Why have you done this?" And he was also a very handsome man, and he was born after Absalom. And he had conferred with Joab, the son of Zeruiah, with Abiathar the the priest, and following Adonijah, they helped him. But Zadok the priest, Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, Nathan the prophet, Shimei, Ray, and the mighty men who belonged to David were not with Adonijah. Adonijah sacrificed sheep and oxen and fatlings by the stone of Zoheleth, which is beside En Rogel, and he invited all his brothers, the king's sons, and all the men of Judah and the servants, but he did not invite Nathan the prophet, Benaiah, the mighty men of and Solomon his brother. This is the opposite of Romans 13. This guy is not following the order. He's making himself a king. He's disrupting the order. He's exalting himself, something that Saul has already lived and died. We know this lesson, that you do not go exalting yourself. And this is the opposite of it. They're playing politics and favoritism. When he's having a feast and he's inviting specific people in order to build himself up a name, and he's purposely not inviting the naysayers. He is not operating in daylight. He's operating in secrecy, and he's constructing an actual conflict inside of the country that he shouldn't be doing. Now, David, to his credit, never said stop doing that. But David was old. Maybe he didn't care, right? Maybe he's like, oh, he must have had a good hunt or something. Who knows, right? So Nathan spoke to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, saying, have you not heard that Adonijah, the son of Haggith, has become king, and David, our Lord, does not know it? Now, imagine if you have to go call this one out, you could lose your life. This guy's acting like the king, looks like the king, doing this stuff in public. You don't think he's the king. If you go challenge him to the king, and the king has actually passed it on, you may find out the truth the hard way. It takes a lot of guts, right? Go at once to King David to say to him, have you not, my lord, O king, sworn to your maidservant, saying, surely Solomon your son shall be king after me, and he shall sit on my throne? Why then has Adonijah become king? Behold, while you are still there speaking with the king, I will come in after you and confirm your words. So they have to scheme to combat the scheming. You see what happens when you have treachery. You can't fight treachery without getting down in the mud. And it's a problem, right? Because they're having to, they're making it look like they're spontaneously doing something that they're actually conspiring to do. So then Bathsheba bowed and prostrated herself before the king. There's that proskuneo again, by the way. And the king said, what do you wish? She said to him, my lord, you swore, my Adonai, right? You swore to your maidservant by Yahweh your Elohim, saying, surely your son Solomon shall be king after me and shall sit on my throne. Now behold, Adonijah is king, and now, my lord the king, you do not know it. He has sacrificed oxen and fatlings and sheep in abundance, and has invited all the sons of the king and Abiathar the priest and Joab the commander of the army, but he has not invited Solomon your servant. As for you now, my lord the king, the eyes of all Israel are on you, to tell them who shall sit on the throne of my lord the king after him. Thank goodness this happened before he croaked. Because if he'd have croaked, right, this is what Adonijah was trying to do, was construct this and time it out. Otherwise, it will come about as soon as my lord the king sleeps with his fathers, that I and my son Solomon will be considered offenders. Behold, while he was still speaking with the king, Nathan the prophet comes in. What a coincidence, right? Right? Oh gosh, Nathan just happened to be in the neighborhood, right? And Nathan said, my lord the king, have you said that Adonijah shall be king after me, and he shall sit on my throne? Now, Nathan does get to speak more freely to David than anybody, because Nathan's the guy who had to smack him around when he was, fooling around with Bathsheba's former husband. And so he has gone down today and sacrificed oxen and fatlings and sheep in abundance, and has invited all the king's sons and the commanders of the army and Abiathar the priest. And behold, they are eating and drinking before him, saying, long live King Adonijah. But me, even me, your servant, and Zadok the priest, and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and your servant Solomon, he has not invited. Has this thing been done by my lord the king, and have you not shown to your servants who should sit on the throne of my lord after him? King David said to him, call Bathsheba to me. She came into the king's presence and stood before the king. The king vowed and said, as Yahweh lives, who has redeemed my life from all distress, surely as I vowed to you by Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, saying, your son Solomon shall be king after me, and he shall sit on my throne in my place, I will indeed do so this day. Then Bathsheba bowed with her face to the ground and prostrated herself before the king and said, may my lord the king, King David, live forever. King David said, call to me Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaiah the son of Jehoiada. They came into the king's presence. The king said to them, take with you the servants of your lord, and have my son Solomon ride on my own mule, and bring him down to Gihon. Now, riding on a mule is humble, not having a big party, looking like a big shot. And this starts I think this is the beginning of Yeshua coming in on a mule, and the high priest riding on a mule. They're not on horses, they're not on chariots, they're on humble means of transportation. So let Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anoint him there as king over Israel, and blow the trumpet and say, long live King Solomon. Romans 13 again. This is the proper order. Zadok is the Kohen Gadol, not this other guy. Nathan is the prophet, and they are the ones who anoint kings. King David was anointed by Samuel, right? Yeah, I hope I don't misspeak. So that's the proper order of things, not making yourself exalted. Then you shall come up after him, and he shall come and sit on my throne and be king in my place, for I appointed him to be ruler over Israel and Judah. Were the kings split at this point? Were the kingdoms split? I don't think the kingdoms were split. Do you think this was edited later, or do you think it was a prophecy? Anybody? Bueller? I don't know.
David got them one at a time. Maybe there was some history there that he was acknowledging still existed, a bit of a division.
I don't know.
I think they were united, but there was also like a division, because I remember wasn't it during Solomon's reign that that the 10 tribes rebelled? Oh no, it was Solomon's son who was too harsh with the 10 tribes, and they seceded basically.
Yeah, so that's
I think there was already that division.
maybe it was forming. Did you turn that on? The mic? All right, because I couldn't hear you. But at any rate, this did stop at 31. So we. All right. Good.
Tested.
Oh, anyway, thank you. So that's all I have today. We don't have to have an hour and a half discussion, because there's not an hour and a half discussion worth of information, unless you guys have something. Nothing? Okay.